Hello, welcome to another episode of F1 Chat here on Technically Analytics. Today, we're going to be talking about the Canadian Grand Prix, which I didn't write down. All right, but anyway, we're going to talk about the Canadian Grand Prix. We're going to start with our usual team, Sauber F1, Kick, whatever you want to call them. Zhao, P15, Bottas, P13. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Sauber had nothing to offer. They made no significant progress. Uh, they didn't qualify well. They didn't race too well. It was bad. Like I think Zhao got lapped by the end. Yeah, they didn't have a good race, and they're not looking any better than they were at the beginning of the season, or any worse than they were at the beginning of the season. It's kind of been the same. So, yep, too bad for them. Next, we have Williams, double DNF. Not a good time to be Williams right now. Sargent has another lackluster race, crashes, spins out. Well, he spins out once, gets away with it, or he goes straight on a curve once, gets away with it, hits the barrier, but gets away with it, no damage. Then spins out, and it ends his race, hits the back of his car on the wall. It obviously was his fate for next year. He's gone at the end of the season. Williams is not bringing him back. And then Albon, he had a run in with Science at the end of the race. He had that really beautiful double overtake though, like midway through the race. It was really nice. He went around Ricardo, I think he went around an Alpine, and then he went around Ricardo in the middle. He cut through the middle of him like a snake to overtake. It was so good. If you haven't seen that, go watch it. It's actually beautiful. And next we have Alpine, Ocon, P10, 1 point, Gasly, P9, 2 points. Alpine had the best result of the season, but not without consequence, of course. Ocon was furious when the team asked him to switch with Gasly. These guys hate each other. Like, they didn't even care about the points, honestly. He was just so mad that he had to switch. His radio was like, "Oh, I'm too nice. Like, I'm not gonna say anything," and stuff. So yeah, it's crazy. Like, that team is feuding so much, and there's so much, like, so many different forms of, like, rebellion going on there. It's crazy. Like, they're gonna, like, fight each other by the end of the season. I feel like, if like a fist fight, it's gonna be just them on the grid just fist fighting. It's crazy. But they had a really good result. This is like their best finish of the season, I think. I don't think they both finished in the points yet, so. And they moved up in the constructors too. They're now not 10th anymore. Now they're like they're 8th. So they're kind of threatening Haas actually a little bit. Speaking of Haas, we have K-Mag P12, Hulkover P11. Early race, saw Haas on wet tires. Only team to take them. Everyone else was on inters. It worked for K-Mag up to P5. He got up to P5 past Piastri. But inevitably, the tires ran out on a drying track. Both drivers had an extra pit stop, and the rest of the race was average. After that run up to the front, it was average. They didn't finish in the points. They were just kind of there, like everybody else. And yeah, it was fun for while it lasted. Like, everyone, they looked like geniuses at first. Like, I was like, wow, that's crazy. But I also knew that they were gonna have to pit an extra time, and that's where they lost all the time. So it didn't work out as great as they thought it would, but it would have been brilliant if K-Mag could have gotten to the front of the pack, P1, get a huge lead, and if it kept raining, he would have been all set. Like, they could have had an easy win there, but didn't quite work out that way. VCAR Racing Bulls, Ricardo P8, 4 points, Sonoda P14. So Ricardo looked to be back in his groove again. Nice points finish. Great qualifying by him. I mean, this is the Ricardo cycle, right? Have a good race, have a good qualifying. Then next race, he's gonna suck, and then people are gonna say, "Oh, they should get rid of him," and then he's gonna have a good race, have a good qualifying. Like, it's a cycle. It's part of the cycle. And then Yuki, he had a late spin, which in a late off. I don't know if it was a spin or I think it was just an off. He completely blew his chances. He was P7 at one point, and that would have been his best finish in the season. It's too bad because he was looking really good. He'd been very consistent, always finishing in the top 10. So yeah, sucks for him. And next we have Aston Martin, Alonso P6, 8 points, Stroll P7, 6 points. Alonso and Stroll, surprisingly, with the fourth best team on the grid in the race. They had a great qualifying. They finished in the points, double points finish. If they could just do this more often, they might catch Mercedes. Like they have a chance to catch them if they can continue to be consistent and finish at least, sixth, seventh, or eighth, ninth, four or five. Like, that could it could keep them in the race at least. So if they have a track where they're really good, then maybe they jump them. Like that's. But overall, I feel like they're kind of holding steady. They haven't lost a lot, but they're not. I think the changeable conditions also helped. Like it rained a lot, so the track kept changing. So maybe it did help them a bit. Help them stay in the points. So yeah. Next we have Mercedes, Hamilton P4, 13 points, Russell P3, 15 points. Hamilton has had a good result, but he was disappointed they didn't go for the win. Obviously, because at the end of the race they were fighting. Like Hamilton passed Russell, and then Russell passed him back. And then for Russell, he made a lot of mistakes actually in tire management and trying to pass Piastri to keep up with and keeping up with Lando too. Like he couldn't, because like the biggest mistake he probably made was when he on that one near the end of the race on the one corner trying to pass Piastri. He tried to go around the inside, and instead he pushed, or he went around the outside rather, and they almost touched, and he went off the track, and Piastri stayed on the racing line. So it kind of cost him a lot of time. Like that was one mistake, and then he just couldn't keep the tires in the window for some reason. He had trouble with the inters keeping them in the window. So yeah, he just never had the pace to catch Lando in second, and he had the pace to beat Piastri obviously, but Piastri struggled at the end of the race. But he could have won from pole if he had been a little more consistent on his tires, and he was better with not making mistakes and not going off the track. So granted, it's tough conditions, but yeah, he could have had a win, and he had pole even though he was technically tied with Verstappen. But we'll go over that later. And next we have McLaren P5, 10 points for Piastri. Norris P2, 18 points. Piastri struggled for pace at the end. Not sure if he kept in Lando's DRS, if that would have helped him. He did look fast at the beginning of the race though at times, so it was, again, it's a similar thing that it keeps happening to him, where he just doesn't have enough race experience to keep the tires in and keep the fastest pace he can the whole time. Like he hasn't learned that skill yet. Like, because when you look at Lando, I mean, he was leading the race. The pace was everywhere for him too, but at least he was able to harness it and use it better than Piastri, able to stay ahead at least. And I think for Lando, the biggest thing is even though he was leading and his pace was all over, he was like slow and then he was faster than everybody else. The safety car denied him a win, just like in Miami for Verstappen. It was the opposite. He got a win because of the safety car, and this time around the timing was just off. He passed the pit already by the time the safety car came out, so he couldn't have pitted under. Like he couldn't have pitted when the opportune time would have been when Verstappen and Russell and everyone else pitted Piastri. But then again, I think McLaren would have had to choose one driver to pit, and they picked Piastri. So I mean, they weren't going to double stack them. There's no way. So yeah, McLaren could have had a win here, but it just slipped away. The timing was off, bit of bad luck. And, Verstappen had a great drive, which we'll talk about later. Next we have Ferrari, double DNF. Sainz had no pace. The spin late that took him and Albon out was bad. Like it was just like Ferrari had a race to forget. Just look away. Leclerc, the Monaco curse came back to haunt him. Ferrari couldn't get anything right. Even in qualifying, they got the wrong tires. And then even in the race, they had the wrong tires on Leclerc's car. They had hard slick tires on when it was raining. Like he was the only one too. Like what they're just I guess they were just gambling, seeing if they could take a shot because he was already in P19 or whatever. So they were like, yeah, well, we'll try it, I guess. So yeah, bad race for Ferrari. Not great for them in the championship. McLaren draws a little bit closer. And then last we have Red Bull, Perez, DNF, Verstappen, P1, 25 points. Verstappen was tied with us on pole, like I said before. He basically showed a driving masterclass here because Red Bull doesn't have the advantage that it once had. So yeah, with no advantage, Verstappen really had to drive well, and he did that. Especially after that second safety car, he was able to just drive away. It the tires, everything else didn't matter. The instability of his car, like he just drove away with it. That's it. That's all he had to do, and that's what he did. So he deserved the win. Well fought win for him. And then Perez, casualty of his own undoing, never moved out of P17. He eventually binned it into the wall, and then he drove into the pits after that, and his wing was like lopsided and stuff. And then after the race, he received a 3-place grid penalty for grid drop for unsafe condition, basically, because he crashed it and he drove back. He was able to drive back, but it was there's pieces flying off. And yeah, Perez doesn't like European tracks. He's not happy in them, so he's gonna be in hell for the next month. Anyway, that's the Canadian Grand Prix, one of the best races of the season. Stay tuned for more F1. We have Spain in 2 weeks, so yeah, stay tuned for that. Make sure to like and subscribe.